Great, beautiful. I'm so happy to have you here, Jeff, with me to share with audience and clients about what it is, what it means to have a financial plan. Really,
Right.
you come with a lot of experience. You come with, gosh, a huge repertoire of experience. And I think that's going to be valuable to those who are listening to this conversation today. So let me ask you one quick question here, Jeff. Why do you think it's important for businesses to have a financial plan in place?
The answer is actually pretty simple. I don't think there's any small business owner, any medium-sized business owner, any large business owner that doesn't have a plan to grow their business. We all want to grow our business. The problem is when you tend towards the smaller side, most of those plans are ideas. They're not a specific plan. So what you need to do is if I'm speaking to a small business owner out there, you need to take that plan and you put down a piece of paper. What are you going to do? What specific things do you want to do? And the one thing about growth plans, they're all financial. So step one is put them down. Step two is attach monetary value to that. Is it the cost to do something? Is it I want to grow to be a $2 million business, to be an $8 million business, a $5 million business, a 10? How are you going to do that? Well, if we're talking about revenues, how am I going to bring in revenues? But also how on the expense side, how am I going to support that? I talked to somebody who's got a $3.5 million business and wants to make it a $10 million business in a year. He goes, the business opportunities are out there. Like, do you understand how disruptive that's going to be to your infrastructure? How many people you're going to have to hire to make your $3.5 million business a $10 million business? That is going to stress you. That is going to stress your organization. I'm not saying you can't do it and that you shouldn't do it, but let's make a plan for what that's going to look like. Because the advantage of having a written plan is you can measure that. So you can know, and it's March, it's April, it's May. Am I on my $10 million plan, or am I now on the $6 million plan? And you can adjust as you go. I mean, like we heard this morning, there's this circle of planning where you plan, you implement, you measure.
Mm-hmm.
Someone was talking, I saw you this morning in a meeting, and someone was talking about in the marketing sphere. Well, it's the same in the financial sphere. You do the same thing. You make plans. Your plans should be measurable. Then you're going to put them into practice, and then you're going to measure. How do you measure? Well, I've got a budget for the year. This is what I want to do. This is how much I want. This is how much revenue and the types of revenue I want. These are my expenses, and it's really hard to control expenses without a plan, and usually the plan is called a budget. So you need a budget for your business. And the budget isn't just, I want to do $10 million in revenue, and I want to have $8 million in expenses, and I'll have a $2 million profit. It needs to be much more detailed than that. You need to know what type of expenses you're going to have, but you also need to understand both revenue expenses. What does January look like? What does March, what does July look like? Is there a cyclical nature to your business? Are there ups and downs? Are you going to do $10 million in November and December? Or are you going to make it, I doubt it, but are you going to make a level income every month throughout the year? Most businesses don't do that. There's going to be ups and downs.
Right.
One thing I will tell you that's pretty level is expenses, because rent every 12 months is due. Every one of the 12 months is due. Your phone bill, your utilities, your payroll costs, all of those are pretty level. So your expenses, you can look at it. There might be some things that pop in that are one-time expenses, again, by plan. If you're going to ramp up your business, then you need to ramp up your payroll costs and all the associated costs that you may have for having more employees. But this is all involved in having a plan.
Right.
And that plan, that financial plan, that we'll call a budget, is measurable. And you can measure how you're doing with that plan. Are you making the revenue you need to make in order to achieve your goals? Are you controlling your costs in order to allow your profit to be what you would like it to be?
Beautiful. It wasn't until, for me personally, in my business, I'm a numbers person. I love to see the numbers. I love data to tell me what's going on, to inform the decisions I'm making. And so in my business, I have my budget, and it wasn't like I had to really nail in on the particulars within the budget, right? What expenses am I incurring? And then also, not just the budget, but also looking at my forecasting, right?
Right.
So how I'm forecasting for next month and my actuals for that. So really following that path of identifying, okay, what am I forecasting and what are my actuals? and then looking at the trend. A lot of small business owners, when I talk to small business owners, if they have a low month, they're thinking, oh my gosh, my business is done for. But really, they're not looking at the trends. They haven't done this budgeting on a yearly basis to look at what happened last year and how do I compare that to what's going on this year, and then how can I plan for that, right? And so maybe
most of the, like I said, most businesses I've worked in, there is a cyclical nature to sales. There are better times of the year and there are slow times of the year. And part of planning is to plan for the low times. Like I said, in the low times, the expenses don't drop. They just keep going. So you need to have a plan and understand how you're going to make it through that low period.
Right. So what would you say are the common mistakes that business owners make, and how can they avoid them, those financial mistakes that they make?
Well, I think probably the most common mistake is not having, and I think they'll admit to this, is not having their hands around the finances of their business. Understanding what is in your bank is not sufficient. Like, well, I've got X amount, in deposit on the bank. That is a snapshot. That isn't even reality. If you're a regular ongoing business, if I take a look at how much is in the bank today, that honestly doesn't inform me about anything, because usually there's money in transit in the form of payments, and I should have an understanding how much is my receivables and what does that look like? Are my receivables growing? And how much is, and if I'm looking at the bank, I've written checks against what's in the bank. So what are my payables? So those are probably one of those are one amongst many, sort of key factors you need to have an understanding. 10 plus years ago, business owner I was working for was like, I don't understand. Our profitability looks fine. Our financial statement looks great, but we don't have any money in the bank. And I'm like, have you looked at the receivables? They've been growing every month. Or invoicing. Every time you invoice, that puts money in your income statement. Bang, bang, bang. That's going up. But if someone doesn't pay you, then your bank account is going to drop because you're still paying expense. And I'm like, that's the answer. It's actually really simple. But you need to take a look at all this stuff. And oh, by the way, I had been actually talking about, I've been talking about that receivables are up and we need to do something about that. That's what's the impact of that? Well, ultimately you can run out of cash, even though you look like on paper, financially, you look great or profitable. Everything's rolling along swell. And in this place, it was all this recurring invoicing every single month. So a lot of this happened beginning of every month. There's a new invoice for the next month pops up on the financials automatically on the first. Boom, there it is, revenue.
Right.
But if somebody's going 60, 90, 120 or more,
right,
that's why we don't have more money in the bank. But I think it is important. One thing I know is it's not, I'm good at it. I'm comfortable with it. You're a numbers person. You're probably very comfortable with it. Most small business owners, they know that finance is not their number one thing. That isn't why they got into business. They didn't, most people got into business because they had a passion for something. They really like something, whether it's a service or a product. They're really good at doing IT and helping somebody out with computers. So you start an IT firm, or you're really good at making this particular, you come up with an innovative idea to make a particular product, and there's a need in the market, and you start doing it. That's what you're good at. No one got into business in order to manage it. Like, oh, I really like going out and talking to my customers and finding out what their wants and their needs are for my particular product. Okay, that's great, but you got to go back to the office and manage staff. And that may involve managing your company to where you never talk to clients anymore, because you are the CEO of your company now, and your company has grown and you can't go visit clients. There just isn't time. You're dealing with administrative duties. And I think there's a lot of business owners who they're not comfortable with that. They don't want to acknowledge that. That can hinder their growth of a business, because you're not spending enough time on the back end of your business. You want to be at the front end of it. I totally appreciate that. But frank and honest, with what I do as a fractional CFO consultant, is sometimes there's frank and honest talk you need to have with the business owner.
Absolutely. And that's so key.
It just isn't going to work. It isn't going to work this way. If you're on the front lines, you can't make sales calls.
Absolutely. And that can hinder them. If that's their greatest skill set and they're not delegating the work to other people, then it hinders the growth for the company. And I usually would, when I talk to clients, it's more like you have to work on the strategy of your business, and you have to build the infrastructure, right? Have the right infrastructure in place So you definitely may not be comfortable with the numbers, but you can hire somebody who knows how to do the numbers, right?
Exactly.
You can bring in somebody who can do the numbers. You can bring in somebody who can do the marketing. You can bring in somebody who can do those other bits of the pieces to free you up to have the life that you want. And if some of it is doing delivery of the service, then so be it.
Yeah. So for me, I think that there is those of us who are in the business world are like, you're always looking for inefficiencies in the marketplace. So for me, the inefficiency in the marketplace is flat out that 90+% of business owners would rather not deal with finance. So my proposition to them is outsource it. Let me deal with, you're a small business owner. You never thought you could have a CFO. Here's an opportunity for an affordable way to work with somebody, say 1 day a week, and only pay the cost for 1 day a week. And you get all the benefits of having a CFO. You can have high level discussions with maybe somebody other than your spouse about how your business is going.
Right.
You can have confidential discussions, and you could sort of map out and strategize about what's the next move, what to do next. I had one guy that I worked for, and the guy that was in the franchising world, and he was looking at buying, other franchises, competing existing franchises, and we had a lot of talks about what due diligence would look like, and what would the profile need to be of the company in order for us to be comfortable with going forward with a purchase. So it's having, I'm the CFO, we're having those types of sort of due diligence acquisition conversations.
And that's
completely comfortable with having that type of stuff. But it's also
those tough conversations have to happen. So one quick last question that I have for you is, so what would be your best advice? Because you mentioned cash flow, right? And what would be your best advice for small business on how to stay on top of their cash flow and hopefully improve it?
Yeah. So you need to have, again, it goes back to planning. You need to have a plan. You need to have, for example, a good sales pipeline that you can rely on. You need to have metrics that you need to have done analysis. So you develop metrics. So I've got $1 million in my pipeline. I think 10% of it's going to close. That's $100,000. We do some basic math. And I know out of that $100,000 that I'm going to close, that I'm going to get, I don't know, $20,000 in 4 months from now. You need to be able to go through what's going on in your business, be able to come up with metrics you can rely on, because then you can come up with a cash flow plan. And if you don't have a cash flow plan for your business, you need a cash flow plan for your business. Even if you think, I have plenty of money in the bank, you should have a cash flow plan for your business, because you need to know what's going on with your cash in the future. The other thing is, having cash that's free up and available gives you an opportunity to reinvest that in your business and grow your business even more. And if you're just looking at what's in your bank and going, I've got enough cash right now, you're gambling. You're gambling with the future. If you want to make a move to grow, or let's say there is an opportunity to acquire another company, and you're like, I think I have enough money in the bank to do this. Well, you better be pretty sure before. Although you really are, it's like you're playing a little bit of roulette.
Right.
What are you betting on?
Right.
I'd much rather bet on something that has some level of certainty.
Right. I agree 100%. And with that, even if the cash flow, you're looking at the numbers, even if you having that plan allows you to understand, maybe you need to go take a loan, right? For future, absolutely. Whether you're future acquisitions or expansion, whatever the case may be. Having a good pulse on your cash flow, your finances gives you that, it empowers you to make decisions that will move you towards growth. Whether you're applying to a bank for a loan, because if you're applying for a loan, you need to be very, very, very comfortable with your numbers, right?
It's beyond just comfortable with your numbers. You need to be able to show your numbers. Yeah. So the typical story coming from a banker is that someone went in and they wanted to get a commercial loan for their business, and the banker's going to ask them for certain information, and often they're like, no problem, I'll talk to my CPA, I'll get that. Well, your CPA who's preparing your taxes isn't going to be able to provide the bank with a pro forma profit and loss statement or balance sheet as to where you are now. If, let's say, it's now today, October 1st, and you're running on a fiscal year that's a calendar year, so you've completed 9 months. Your CPA doesn't know anything about any of that's gone on. They might be able, based on the information you gave them for last year, to prepare your taxes, they might be able to generate something that looks like that, but it's not, you're not going to the right place to get that data. And quite honestly, before you ever ask for a loan, you should have all that stuff together. So if you're not looking at regular monthly financials to evaluate and understand where your business is, you're probably missing out on opportunities. And if you're going to try and go out and get a loan, you're certainly going to make that a struggle for you and a struggle for the banker. And you're going to, if any of that stuff is time bound, you're probably going to exceed the limits because you're going to run out of time, because you're going to have to go back and create this stuff that you're, as opposed to, it's a lot easier to produce it as you're going along than to create it on the fly because I need it.
Right. So preparation is key, right?
Well, it's constant and regular monitoring of your financial state.
Right.
There should be, like I said, there's KPIs, key performance indicators, accounts payable, accounts receivable. What are my sales for the month? What's my projection for the year? What are my cost margins on the different products or services that you should have this stuff at the at your fingertips. I was talking to somebody this morning, and I was talking about his business. I asked how big his business was, and he said it was $1 million. They do about $1.5 million. And a minute later in the conversation, he said, "Oh, actually, the business is $2.5 million." I'm like, that's a significant difference between a $1.5 million business and a $2.5 million business.
Right.
You need to have those types of things. You need to know it. I mean, those are facts about your business. There should be no greater knower of facts about your business than you, the business owner.
Agreed.
And it's not hard for someone like me to produce stuff on whatever regular schedule you need it in order for you to have that stuff, in front of you at your fingertips, to develop a dashboard that has all this stuff. Let's go through what are the key pieces of information you need, and let's take a look at this. Do you know, if you're on a calendar year, fiscal year, you're 9 months in, are you on plan? Are you going to make your number this year, your growth number? Is that number on a piece of paper, or is it still stuck in your head? Like, oh, I want to do $100 million this year or whatever. Like, okay, well, you've done 4 and it's the end of September.
Right. So
you got big plans in your giant business.
Yeah. How feasible is that? Right.
Yeah.
And so great. So Jeff, you've talked about financial planning and then CPA, the difference between a financial planner, right, and the CPA. You hinted on that in that conversation.
So I'm not really, I think financial planner denotes something else. Usually that's sort of in the wealth side of the world, which what I like to do is help business owners to plan for strategic growth. It's planned growth. Financial planning is more on the personal wealth side of the world. But in my world, in the business world, you will have CPAs. And I usually like to say a CPA will make a really good controller for your business in terms of looking back, measuring what's happened. If we talk about you're in a car, that's the person who's looking in the side view mirror and the rear view mirror to see where we went. Maybe they're looking a little bit past the hood to see where we're going. My experience, I've got a master's in business administration. People like that tend to make better CFOs, and the CFO is looking long-term. So while the controller is sitting next to me behind the steering wheel, I'm in the passenger seat and I've got the GPS up because I'm looking out for the future, and I can see, there's an accident in 2 miles. We're going to take a detour coming up in 0.7 miles. And so I'm helping to navigate the business waters and make moves to help us get there, avoid traffic accidents along our path. And so it's really I think the CFO is more future oriented and the controller tends to be more past oriented. You can have a CFO without having a controller. Can I do both for companies? Absolutely. But I'm really going to push the future stuff.
Right.
We still need the data we need, which is what happened, the facts. That is in the past, but it isn't the focus on making sure that we have every single thing lined up a CPA is much more concerned about the rules. And my experience is they're not as interested in things like innovation. So are they willing to try something that you haven't done before? Much more like, well, this is the rules, this is what it says we should be doing. This is what we're going to do. We're going to draw, we're going to color neatly between the lines. I'm in my career absolutely willing to do what I call fail fast.
Right.
I'm going to try something, and we're going to push hard, and we're going to go fast at it. And if it fails, we're absolutely going to pull the plug on that quickly and get out and just go, that didn't work for us. And that to me is innovation. And I think that's also important. And you get that. If you're not getting that from your CFO to push you to innovate and to do different things, which is growing your business and is growth, then you need to be taking a look at who you're working with, because the CFO it is navigating the future, but sometimes the future is about doing things that are innovative within your business, being a little creative about it, doing stuff you haven't tried before. And so one of the things with this sort of last 25 years of being CFO in many different organizations is I've seen a lot of different things and I've tried a lot of different things. But I've also, the small business CFO wears a lot of hats. So going back to that job I was talking about at the beginning, where I'm running finance and accounting, but I'm also running human resources, I'm also running IT, I'm running facilities, a little bit of operations. I've got experience doing all of those things in my career. It's hard not for me to bring all of those with me. So one of one of the ways I've described is I have like a Swiss Army knife set of skills, which I can flip open the knife for finance and accounting, but I might have the screwdriver for IT and the scissors I can flip open for HR, and I can pull out the cork for facility management, and all these different things. You can just flip open the tool and all these different things will pop out. And so that's another, for me, that's another advantage for the clients that I work with, that they're able to get, okay, well, I got CFO, but I got a lot more too.
Beautiful. I have one additional question. You talked about KPIs, metrics. So what are the financial metrics? And I think you hinted on some, but I just wanted to highlight and bring them back up here so it's front of mind. What are the financial metrics that business owners should really have a pulse on?
Well, going back to the two that I talked about before, was how much your payables are, how much your receivables are. Your receivables should be more than your payables. It's the other way around. That means you're headed towards some cash flow crisis in your business. You do want to understand what your cash flow is. You should have, at the very least, a 13-week cash flow projection, knowing what's going to happen over the next 3 months. You should have an understanding of what your sales are. So what are your revenues for the year? What were your revenues last month? What is your, and as part of this, because you should plan, you should have a target. So when I was running the software company in the manufacturing field, one of the things we did is we had weekly staff meetings, and I was open with I ran a very transparent organization. So once a week we'd have a staff meeting, and as part of that staff meeting, we would say, as of right now, our sales are X. This is our goal for the month, and everybody in the company knows exactly where we are, and this is where we should be for the year at the end of this month, and this is where we are year to date. And having that type of information at your fingertips available to you, where are we for the month? Because do we need to do something? Is the month not, you should know how your month is going a week into the month, not on the 28th of the month. That isn't when you should start to be looking at like, oh, we need to really ramp sales up for the month. It's like, well, there's only 3 days left in the month. You need to be working on that throughout the month. So I think another key indicator is your annual sales as well as your monthly sales. And they're just a host. I mean, different industries have different indicators. And as the small business owner, you should know what the key indicators are in your industry for your company. And they vary. It depends, because from the back end side, there's a lot of stuff that's common. In terms of the finance and the accounting function. What you may look at as indicators is going to vary from one company to the next. So when I worked for the company that was a franchisor, things like our leads and how many people we talking to were really, really important to that business. But when I was working for the company that had been retail and was working to go into wholesale, we were doing wholesale stuff. So leads wasn't really as important, because we had regular customers who were buying product. It more had to do with what do we have in orders that are pending, because we were assembling product. That was much more important. What's going on? How fast are we turning stuff around and getting stuff out the door, as opposed to franchising was like, how many leads do we have to sell franchises? And we didn't just sell franchises. We were actually the one generating the business for that franchising. So it was a cleaning franchise. So if you were a customer, you bought a stream of revenue. So you bought for whatever you paid, let's say bought a $2,500 contract to clean a particular office 5 days a week, and it was $2,500 a month. You bought that, you needed to provide. We were selling that as corporate. We were going out. We had a sales staff and a whole telemarketing division that did all the telemarketing to get people on the phone to talk to office managers about cleaning. And we would close and write a contract, and then we would give that contract out to a franchisor. Very different model than a lot of other businesses, but knowing what was going on with how many contracts are in the pipeline, how many franchisors do we have in the pipeline? Those were basically two lines of business that were going to join together in the middle. So it's very different than probably 90% of the other businesses out there, because that's not how a lot of them is. If you're a service, it's what are you doing in your pipeline? If it's product, it's what are you doing in your pipeline, and what's going on with your product assembly.
Beautiful. Wow. What a wealth of information, Jeff. Really appreciate this. And I think that there's a lot of value here. So just to wrap this up, in order for you to really achieve sustainable growth in your business, you must do three things. You must have a plan. Your financial plan must be in place. You must have the right infrastructure. I think you talked about having a dashboard to look at your metrics. You must look at those metrics consistently, so that weekly, you want to know how your business is performing weekly. So you must know what's happening on a week-to-week basis, your annual goals, your monthly goals, and then you need to innovate. You need to innovate and adapt quickly quickly to the changes that are happening. Jeff, did I get that right?
I think you did. And I want to thank you for the opportunity for you, for Focal Point, for providing the opportunity for us to talk today. This has been great.
It's been so much fun. So we'll talk again soon. Nice
Yes,
having you here.
absolutely.
I appreciate you. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.